Been more than 15 years since a Democrat occupied the governor's mansion in Iowa. State Auditor Rob Sand wants to try to change that. This fall, he will face off against Republican Zach Lahn, who's a businessman and a farmer from Iowa. Election forecasters, including the nonpartisan Cook Political Report, rate this as a toss-up race. Here was some of my conversation with Rob Sand earlier today. In his victory speech, your opponent, Zach Lahn, said you, Rob Sand, are a captive of Iowa's agriculture and pharmaceutical interests. And that has given you reason to have a blind eye, his words, to a cancer crisis in Iowa. How do you respond to that?
I'd blink and go, what on earth is this guy talking about?
Okay.
He says a lot of things. I can't explain that. I guess at the end of the day, he's not very familiar with what's been going on in the state because he's mostly been living in Kansas.
Do you consider him a Kansan or an Iowan?
I think it's a fair argument. At the end of the day, he voted in Kansas in 3 of the last 4 elections. He opened up a private school down there that he was running after working full-time down there. A decade as a full-time paid political operative, also in Montana and Colorado. Most importantly, I think, is his own words. His plane at the beginning of this campaign spent more time in Kansas than it did in Belle Plaine,
Iowa, where his family farm is.
Where he says he lives. And when he was asked about it, he said, if I'm elected, I will change my living situation and I'll be in Iowa as much as humanly possible. Which I don't think most Iowans would find particularly reassuring. I mean, that's him saying, like, yeah, this wouldn't work for that, which leads me to ask just, why aren't you running in Kansas?
What about the cancer crisis in Iowa? Is it real? Zach Lahn says there is a higher incidence of newly diagnosed cancer in Iowa than any place on planet Earth. Is that true?
We were #1 for new cancer last year. We are now #2 behind, I believe, West Virginia.
He says that's because of Big Pharma and Big Ag, is it?
Well, we have a cancer crisis. He's partially right. There is a tie between nitrates and cancer. There is also a tie between pesticides and cancer. We need to do something about this. I think that's important that we do something about it. But I also think we need to acknowledge that we are the worst state for radon in America. Lung cancer is a leading cancer in Iowa, and radon is the 2nd leading cause of lung cancer in the United States behind smoking. So, yeah, he's right, and I'm right too, and we need to have a policy on that that's going to move things. I've been consistent in having done the research saying that we shouldn't be supporting immunity for pesticide manufacturers, for example. He picked a lieutenant governor nominee that supported the bill that would have provided additional immunity to pesticide manufacturers.
So there's a difference there, you would say?
Yeah.
What about the fact that Zach Lahn was not the Trump-endorsed Republican, and he won? What does that tell you about the value of a Trump endorsement in Iowa?
You know, I guess that's up to voters to decide. I can tell you this, he won this primary with 37.8% of the vote. I think that a lot of folks right now are looking around wondering, why are things so rough in Iowa? And when you remind them, well, we've had 10 years of one-party control and power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. They say that's right, and they're ready for change. And he, just like whoever else would have come out of that primary, is essentially representing more of the same. He wants to continue Kim Reynolds' policies.
When I look at Iowa, I have a kind of obsessive knack of paying attention to eastern Iowa, where President Obama in 2008 and 2012 ran very strong. Mm-hmm. He ran strong in a lot of Iowa, but I'm kind of obsessed by eastern Iowa. And then President Trump came along and reversed in some of the counties right along the Mississippi River in eastern Iowa. There was like a 40-point swing from 2008 to 2020 or 2020.
Howard County specifically, yeah. 40 points.
What is that about? First of all, from your estimate, what is that about?
Yeah.
How do you reverse it, and do you think this is a reversible year for those trend lines?
Well, look, to me, I think a lot of Iowans have had the opportunity to get to know me over the years. I do 100 public town halls, one in every single county seat in Iowa. Lee County, for whatever reason, has 2. I don't argue, I just go to both. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of people out there who want to vote for a person they feel like they know. And Obama had an openness about him, and Trump had been a public figure for decades. I have been in all of these counties. I've been there every year. I've always announced in advance that I'm coming to town. And I think that in my race provides people with an understanding of me and the work that I do that gets them to a level of trust that makes them comfortable with me as a candidate for governor.
Let me talk to you about school choice. You have a report that your auditor's office put out about Iowa, its approach. It has become a bit of a topic point for Republicans nationwide. Mm-hmm. Why do you believe what Iowa's doing is wrong? And do you believe it is subsidizing wealthier Iowans at the expense of others?
Well, we know that it's subsidizing wealthier Iowans because there is no income limit on who can get this. If the folks who passed this program actually cared about school choice, they would have said, we're going to give you this much money, but you can't just throw your tuition rate up by the same amount, leaving it equally as unaffordable as it was before. They didn't do that. If the folks who supported this program actually cared about school choice, they would have said, we're going to make sure this is focused on low-income folks, and they would have an income limit. Instead, 80% of the money goes to folks whose kids would have been in private school anyway. That's the report that we put together using Governor Reynolds' own numbers.
Kim
right?
Reynolds.
Yeah. We're not allowed to audit how this public money is spent. There are no rules other than one, you can't pay a rebate. So there's no rules for how private schools spend public money, Major. This whole thing is a boondoggle. I was the chief public corruption prosecutor in Iowa prior to being state auditor. Mm-hmm. I prosecuted the Iowa Film Office tax credit scandal, uncovered the largest lottery rigging scheme in American history, prosecuted the only American prosecution of a Papua New Guinean Ponzi scheme that ensnared Iowans for hundreds of thousands of dollars. When I read this bill, alarm bells went off in my head.
Right.
I could read this and say, money is going to get wasted. Money is going to be abused. And yet that's the program that they put in place. I don't understand why they want to do that. We also have a $1.3 billion budget deficit, and we're sending this money to the wealthiest people in Iowa who are going to send their kids to private school anyway, when our budget is burning off our surplus at a rate of $1.3 billion a year. That's fiscally irresponsible.
Rob Sand, Democratic nominee for governor in Iowa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being.